Hi everyone, thanks for coming.
Hi.
So we're here today to talk about getting housing qualified. So what's changed in the housing sector, why those changes have come about, what that means for housing associations and their employees and their customers. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Nikki. I also work in the housing sector. I have done for a long time. So I'm really interested in this topic, and I'm interested to hear your views. I'm looking forward to picking your brains a little bit. So can we start by introducing ourselves? So start to my right.
Okay, so I'm Karina Hembury. I'm the Managing Director at Access Training, and we're an independent training provider.
Brilliant.
Hello, my name's Paul Moat. I'm Chief Exec at NCHA.
Hi, Paul.
And I'm Helena Thompson. I'm the Group Director of Customer Experience at Futures Housing Group.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Paul, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. So why is this conversation around housing qualifications and skills development in the sector really important and really topical right now?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. So a couple of years ago, a piece of legislation came along called the Social Housing Regulation Act. And that was very much the government's response to the Grenfell Tower disaster. And also, I don't know if you heard about Awa Bishak, the little boy in Rochdale who died in a house where there was excessive mould. And what the government decided at that time was they'd try and balance up the relationship between the landlord and the customer. Mm-hmm. And they decided they'd set legislation in place to make sure that social housing providers had to do that. Number of elements to the legislation, and one of them is what's called the Competency and Conduct Standard. And that's been tagged by some as the professionalisation of housing. But really what it is, it's to enable or empower, to skill up housing professionals to respect the customers that we're providing services to. And part of that competency and conduct standard is the delivery of things like the CIH Level 4 and 5 housing qualification for colleagues.
Karina, tell us then how Access Training fit into all of that. What's the kind of background at Access Training? Why is this particularly interesting to you guys?
Yeah, so as I said, Access Training, we're an independent training provider, and actually we are co-owned by NCHA and by Futures Housing Group. Yeah. So and that relationship has existed for over 10 years now. So we are through that sort of rooted in housing, and that's been a really big part of our development and evolution over the last 10 years to be more involved in training in the housing sector of all sorts, so apprenticeships, qualifications for new entrants and for more experienced staff as well.
So the kind of the changes that have come about now, then you're able to kind of move with those housing associations, knowing the sector so well.
Absolutely. So yeah, we've been delivering those CIH qualifications and housing apprenticeships for about 6 or 7 years now. Yeah. So it's something that we've got lots of experience in doing. We have some fantastic trainers and tutors that work for us that are housing professionals themselves, that bring with them a wealth of knowledge that they are very eager to share with people and help them along their journey with their qualifications.
Brilliant. So, Paul, just going back to the Social Housing Regulation Act, it's very hard to say, that you talked about earlier. This has placed a much stronger emphasis on customer satisfaction, transparency, and professional standards, which you've already touched on. So what does that actually mean for housing providers in practice? So, forget what's kind of the ideal. What does that mean for organisations like NCHA?
Well, I think of NCHA and I think of the vision that we have. And an element of that vision is to provide great services for our customers and to help them have better lives, certainly the best life that they can. And I think professionalising, enhancing the skill set of our colleagues and getting a consistency of skill means you can grow your own people. So there's something about internal progression, which is a valuable part of this. But there's also something about the customer then receiving a consistent and we hope great service, which means some of the frustrations you hear about in terms of housing, people don't get if they work for organisations where the colleagues who work there are heavily skilled. And that's, I think, the driver behind all of this, is to try and make sure that we do have that consistency, and our customers know what to expect.
And Helena, I'm guessing at Futures you would echo Paul's view there around how developing colleagues will kind of help your organisation meet the new expectations.
Yeah, so obviously closely linked to what Paul just said, team members that are, equipped with the training and the knowledge that they need to do a good job are happier in the workplace. And we all know that, happy staff and team members are able to deliver services which are much better, and therefore better services for customers. The other thing we know about our customer service is that when our customers are satisfied and happier, then they're more likely to engage with us. And part of the Social Housing Regulation Act is about listening to customers and responding to what customers are telling us in order to make sure that our services meet those individual customer needs. So yeah, very closely linked to what Paul said.
Brilliant, thank you. So Karina, we talked there, Paul mentioned briefly about those recognised qualifications. What do you think are the key benefits of having those qualifications within the business, both for the business and for the colleague that's going through the programme?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we know that there's a given bit, which is that this will be part of the regulations, that there is an expectation for managers and execs to be qualified, whether that's at level 4 or level 5. Mm-hmm. But actually, I think there are wider benefits to that being embedded throughout the whole organisation. What the regulations are very much looking at doing is almost a sort of top-down approach, I suppose, with that. But I know a number of the organisations that we work with are looking at a bottom-up approach as well, so bringing those qualifications in more widely. And really the benefit of that is for the staff, they are feeling that the organisation is investing in them and their professional development, which I think is a real positive for them as individuals. It gives them a great opportunity to engage with other people, whether that's people within their organisation or in other organisations if they're part of an open cohort. So it increases their networking and their exposure to others and different ways of working, which is going to really help them too. And gives them usually a real confidence boost, I think. Yeah. Sometimes getting back into training for people which they may not have done formal education for quite a few years can be quite a scary thing, quite a daunting proposition. But the way that we work really supports them as an individual so that they can take those baby steps that they might need to, have a bit of hand-holding initially and then hopefully be flying through it and really seeing the benefits of it.
So I'll stay with you then, Karina. So you've talked a lot then about the kind of range of qualifications that you offer, kind of from leadership down to the more kind of operational side of things. Do you want to just talk us through those that are available?
Yeah.
And how they kind of fit into the structure of an organisation?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the housing qualifications and for the apprenticeships, we have a sort of entry level which starts at level 2. So that would be for new entrants into housing. They might be in housing officer roles or they might be in customer service roles. That's going to give them a really good grounding into the sector and understanding the basics of it. And then it progresses through from level 3, level 4 with the apprenticeships. That's where that stops. But then we have the level 5 with the CIH qualifications that go all the way up. And obviously by the time you're up there, you're looking at more strategic things. But there is this sort of golden thread throughout them all of professional practice and making sure that people are learning what that means for them, what is appropriate for them at the level they're at, and what the expectations are for them, not just within the organisation, but I guess sort of nationally, because these qualifications are transferable for individuals and things as well. So,
yeah. That's really helpful. Helena, I understand. Congratulations are in order. So you've just completed level 5, is that right?
Yep, just completed the CIH level 5.
How was that?
I think the hardest bit was, after years and years of report writing, to go back to writing an assignment was probably the hardest bit.
Right.
So it's taken around 10, 11 months. There were 6 assignments within that, all sort of directly related to things that you would do in a senior leadership role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from the sounds of it, it's quite a formal kind of style of writing, you know, that kind of academic.
Yeah, so it uses Harvard referencing and, you know, not used that for a lot of years. But it was, for each session, there was for each assignment, there was a session with, you know, qualified trainer.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened it up. We've got other people from other housing associations that took part and was part of that sort of peer networking that Karina referred to.
Yeah.
And that's really valuable because you build those relationships that you can sort of continue and, you know, continue those peer networks if it's something that's useful for your organisation.
And what sort of impact do you think this is going to have on your role going forward? Has it given you more confidence or knowledge, or is it just kind of reaffirmed things?
There's something about professional credibility, you know, and that assurance that it can give to the organisation and to, you know, any boards that we have in housing associations. And whilst it's not something that we're necessarily promoting directly to our customers, it does give me that assurance that, you know, I've got all of the knowledge that I need and I've kind of got the evidence to back that up, that I've got the knowledge that I need to deliver those great services to our customers that they deserve.
So for any other senior leaders in your kind of position or management roles looking at that level 5, what would your advice be?
Make the time to do it. So, obviously it does take time and we're all busy and there's always more to do in housing. We can always make better services. You know, we can always spend more time with our customers, finding out what they need and what we need to do to meet those needs. But I would make the time. Each assignment's probably taken between sort of 8 and 12 hours for each one, but definitely worth doing and, you know, make that investment.
Yeah. Digressing only ever so slightly, Paul, thinking about apprenticeships. So we've gone from the kind of the more senior strategic qualifications. So thinking about the more kind of developmental, do you see them playing quite a key role in bringing new talent into the housing sector?
That's certainly our view at NCHA.
Yeah.
So at the moment we have over 20 apprenticeships across a range of our service areas. So that's ranging from administration through housing qualifications that Karina mentioned, but also into very practical roles. So our hands-on trade operatives who deliver our repairs into our homes. Mm-hmm. We have apprenticeships in them. We've got some really nice success stories of people who've gone through apprenticeships there. My personal view is there's been an underinvestment in training and development in areas like that, which means there's a void. And I think we've got a part to play in filling that void. And that's part of where our working with Access Training is so rewarding, I think, because there is a benefit for the colleague who's doing the training. We've talked about personal development and that fulfillment and, you know, that gaining confidence and so on. But there's also a benefit for NCHA, and ultimately there's a benefit for our customers.
Yeah.
And I just think, why wouldn't you invest the money in developing people? Because everybody wins at all of the different levels. Yeah. It just strikes me as a very sensible business approach.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're certainly reaping the benefits at NCHA.
Well, you've just led me very nicely to my next question, which I think you'll enjoy. So NCHA was recently awarded a C1 rating, which is the highest score under the new consumer standard. And I know you're really proud of that, quite rightly. So how do you think investing in colleagues at NCHA in their training and development, do you think that contributed towards that result?
I think inevitably it contributed. If you think of what the parts of a C rating are made up of, it is providing a warm, safe and secure home. And I've already mentioned the fact we've trained people to be our operatives who are doing the work in those homes. But it's also about other aspects such as listening to the customer, taking the customer's views into account, giving the customer genuine influence. And to do that effectively, you do need skills. These are things that you can't just rely on people to naturally be able to do. I think training does help people. And really, you know, doing that sort of work, it does give you confidence if you're properly trained to do it. I mean, I really liked your story, Helena, about your CIH Level 5 training, because I think it's at all levels that people can get a real benefit from proper development and training. And I think that really just boosts a whole organisation, and it's a whole organisation effort to get something like a C1 rating.
Yeah. So back to you, Karina, I guess. So you've talked quite a lot about the benefits of career development on individuals and those people, but in your experience, where have you seen organisations benefit as well? Obviously, in the case of NCAHA, there's quite a literal benefit in that regulator award, but
yeah. So I think the organisations that we work in will see, similar benefits to what Paul's described there, but I think it's all about then the way that you support that organisation, and that's something that we try to do really well. We really work in partnership with organisations to understand what their needs are, and then we'll adapt and tailor training and what might be needed. So whether that's how we're delivering, where we're delivering, when we're delivering, whether people are part of cohorts, open, closed, or closed cohorts, or whether it's apprenticeships, whether it's commercial training, whatever those needs are, we'll try and work together to map that out, to look at succession planning, for instance, to try and identify, first of all, what are the priorities, where do you actually need that training, which are the colleagues that are going to benefit the most, and help organisations to work through that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Helena, coming back to you again, obviously your role is all around the customer experience. So from that perspective, the impact of improving the skills and training on our customers, I think we've already kind of touched on this, but what's your kind of takeaway on that?
So I think, by empowering team members through training and providing knowledge through that training, it will have a direct impact on the services that they are delivering to our customers. So there's a direct benefit there and a direct link between training provision for team members and the outcome for customers when it comes to the services that they're receiving.
So, Karina, we've heard a lot today about the new Act.
Yeah.
For any housing organisations watching, kind of what's the best way for people to get started? How what would your advice be for those early steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, we'd love to hear from any organisations so that we can see how we can help them. But what we're finding with people that we're working at, the first steps that people are doing is carrying out a bit of a sort of skills analysis. So looking at their organisation, identifying the colleagues that they've got, where are their qualifications levels sitting at the moment, where are their skills needs. So mapping that out so that you've got a clear idea of what needs to be done. Then obviously the next step is thinking about when and how, what's going to be the best route for that. So there are funded training options out there, which are obviously really attractive for organisations, but there's different pros and cons of all of those. So reaching out to organisations that can help you along and can give you advice and insight into how different organisations are doing it, because it is really different for different organisations. So we work with some really large housing associations, but also really small ones and everywhere in between. And the skills needs and the qualification needs will be really different depending on what history that organisation has had with investing in training and where their staff have come from. So it will always be different. So doing that really good analysis up front to get all of that information so that you can then start the planning is important.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
Okay, thanks.
Right, so final thoughts, I think. So Paul, we'll start with you. If you could just kind of sum up your kind of one key message around the importance of qualifications and development in the housing sector.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, listening to the conversation, what I would say is, if you want to be a great place to work, getting the right people doing the right jobs who are fully skilled is absolutely imperative. So recruitment and retention is important. Career progression is important. Our colleagues tell us here at NCHA that progression is an important aspect of working for NCHA, and that's something that they can see happen to others So that's motivating for people. And I think overall, if you get all of the ingredients right, that's where you start to get real successes and where you start to deliver what I described as our earlier vision about great services and really looking after our customers. And I think that's where training links in really nicely.
Thank you. Helena, your point of view?
So I think one of the key parts of the Social Housing Regulation Act is that about individualising services. So having great processes, having great procedures, having great policies, they're not enough anymore. That we need to be able to adapt those individual services to customers' specific need. And I think the only way that you're going to be able to do that is through having staff that are empowered with the knowledge that they need to be able to make those decisions in the moment directly with the customer.
Yeah. And training's the way to
Absolutely.
do it. Yeah. Karina, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I suppose for me, it's been great to hear about the impact that training has on organisations and I suppose on the individuals. So I guess for me, it's just about encouraging others to start that journey, really. Don't leave it until it's too late. Some of this will become mandatory and, that people are then obviously all going to be rushing. So I think at the moment, the more that people can be considering what they need in their organisation and thinking about that succession planning as well as the colleagues that they've got at the moment, I think is really important. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks all for being here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Contact details for Access no doubt will be included in the rest of the slides. So good to see you all. Thanks again.
Thank you.